I'll start by asking about those partnerships that each of the panelists would like to highlight, whether because the partnership with you was unique, unexpected, or simply one that was very much needed. And the reason that we're so interested in partnerships is that these partnerships create new pathways to getting things done. We're facing new challenges, and the departments and institutions and tools and roles that we have right now might not be best suited to solving the latest challenges we have. So I'm going to start with Kitty. Kitty, in the city of Vaughan, how have you leveraged partnerships with other organizations to support your smart city initiatives? Are there any unique ones you'd like to highlight?
You can get it.
Thanks, Anna. That's a great question. You know, we have a very limited staff resource here in Vaughan on the Smart City unit. Essentially, it's myself, and we just hired one person to help with the Transportation Innovation Program. So, you know, leveraging partnership is really key to really enhance our Smart City projects. I'll give you two examples of other types of partnerships that we have here in Vaughan. One is with Venture Lab, who is a regional innovation center, and also Sterling Industry, which is a medical technology manufacturer here in Vaughan. They partner together to look at developing a new resource to as a testing facilities to help companies that are looking to develop new and innovative medical devices locally to have access to a medical facility to not only develop their technology, but also getting support from technology accelerators right here in Vaughan as well too. Another example that I can point to is also where we like to leverage our partnership with our academic institutions in Vaughan as well too. And one example that is also available to cities across Canada is the MyTax program. What it is, in short, is that it's matching researchers from academic institutions with potential city challenges of a research problem. So in Vaughan, we have kickstarted two projects in our public works portfolio, looking at data assessment with traffic data, and then the other one is looking at a automatic speed enforcement planning. Right, the students were able to work with city staff to learn about operations and municipal government. And then on the city side, we were able to receive some pretty in-depth research and recommendations report that we can also incorporate into our findings to council about recommendations on how to move forward with data assessment and also recommendations on different speed enforcement as well too. So a program like MyTax is really a win-win where we can leverage university and colleges their lens of expertise, and then the city can also get something out of it as well too, right? Like, and from the city side, it's really talent development. It's looking at, you know, can they help with a component of our work that we typically may not have time or the technical expertise on.
Thanks, Kitty. Jason, I saw you nodding along quite a lot there. What was it that Kitty said that has applied to you as well with Calgary?
Well, I think the partnerships with academic institutions, but you know, even for us, our school boards as well. You know, going into the pandemic, Calgary was in a panic that we were losing young people, and we were not a city that young people wanted to come into, and so we really focused on working with students to make them feel a part of our city. So with post-secondaries, that has looked like our Urban Alliance projects, where we've even had architecture students, you know, start to work with city planners and parks folks, because their resume and their degree, those are all portable, but your professional network isn't. So if we can anchor them here with their LinkedIn profiles, then that's great. So we had them, even design simple solutions that are not technology based, but park benches that can be stored easily in the fall. So just a simple sheet of aluminum using some origami, and then pop, you've got a bench. And at the end of the season, you can fit 20 benches in a closet. But A really cool one we also did through the resilience side of our city is we partnered with the public school board to work with Minecraft and Microsoft to develop a program where students got to have a part and have a say in how our downtown developed. So we started the Level Up project as a pilot here in Calgary. And we had our last season, we had almost 30,000 participants, so students from K to 12. And that Level Up Calgary has become a staple of Minecraft. And so now we have Level Up Los Angeles. I think Winnipeg launched theirs. Now it's Toronto, Barcelona. And so that kind of, it allowed us to engage young people, have them connect with city planners, have them become a part of our innovation ecosystem, but also showed some global players that were ready to come to the table and play.
Fantastic. That's amazing. So you were the ones that started the Level Up program. You kind of got it all started. Amazing.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah.
Cyrus or Meghan? Cyrus or Meghan, did you want to comment on particular partnerships?
Go ahead, Meghan. Feel free. I can chime in if you don't want to.
One of the great ones that we've had is partnering with Dr. Milan Riva at McGill, and she's an expert in energy poverty research here in Canada. So she's actually working with us through the duration of our project. We're funded till 2026 through the Smart Cities Challenge, and she's going to be working us throughout that point. So she's done a community-wide survey, and she's also interviewing people who are participating directly in our programs. And that's just going to help us to be able to evaluate our impact at a much deeper level. She's doing very rigorous research with us that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. And then another academic partner that we have is the Nova Scotia Community College. And they are actually really deeply involved with our energy management information system. And they're taking care of the hardware side of that while we're working with the private company on the software side. So we have a lot of partners in, like, from nonprofits to companies to academic institutions, but it's been really cool to be able to share the knowledge and insights of all these folks so that we can build up our capacity here in Bridgewater.
Fantastic. And Cyrus?
Yeah, I think everyone's covered it really well. On our side, we do see good success partnering with the post-secondary institutions, whether it be around supporting initiatives around energy reduction and bringing that expertise. We've had a data challenge with our local college that's looking at all the data that's coming off our buildings and our facilities to look for synergies there. We have, as I mentioned, our City Lab program where we partner with our post-secondary institutions, and we have about 19 projects that are going live as part of the winter semester project. And again, those are all projects that have been brought up through city staff and get partnered with local post-secondaries. And again, I think industry plays a part too, right? We do work with partners. Especially if someone's bringing funding opportunities to the table where the city can act as that funding, as that partner requirement through in-kind or other programs. So yeah, I think it's about that, what everybody said, and also that ecosystem that's specific to the local region to help kind of drive some of these things and leverage that expertise. And often, like everybody said, teams are small, cash is tight, resources are limited. So anything you can use from a partner ecosystem, to use that much overplayed cliche term of ecosystem, is a benefit to evolving this for anybody.
Great. So there's some great plugs for universities and academic partners out there. Fantastic. I hope you're all listening and jumping on it, and some great ways in which you've leveraged them. The data challenge sounds I think that would be a fun kind of thing. So just to the panelists, there are some questions starting to come in the side. We do have a couple more that I'd put in front of you to get your thinking hats on, but do start having a look at those as well, and we'll come back to some of those too. So I also wanted to know more broadly about collaborations with other municipalities. One of the aims of the Infrastructure Canada Challenge was to develop solutions that are replicable across the country, to share what you've been doing with other municipalities. So I'll start with Jason. What are some ways in which in which you might have collaborated with other universities, with other municipalities? Oh, you're on mute.
Well, we have a regional planning group within the city, and we're really starting to parallel that or add on to it. So again, my colleague Luis Mora leads that, and really having those just starting off with meetings and saying where are we all at, and understanding that as a city much bigger than our neighbors, we have a much bigger budget for exploration, and we have a strong relationship with those post-secondaries that aren't available in the other communities. So finding pathways where they can leverage our progress. So that's building an AI bot, or we're really focusing on innovation challenges. You've seen it from actually Edmonton's been really good with capital city pilots, where they went and tested a bunch of industry automated lawnmowers. Well, can we share those learnings with the city, other cities and our neighbors? So that's an easy way to start. I think we're also we're seeing the attractiveness of some of our neighboring cities. It's easier; they can be more adaptive, perhaps, and so we're seeing companies like Garmin set up their national headquarters in a small city just outside of Calgary and Cochrane, and that's led to a lot of GIS and a smart city hub that's happened, that's kicking off there. And so, how do we partner to continue to collaborate? How do you have those collisions when now you're 45 minutes apart? It's really something we're trying to work on and have not just the city folks connecting, but then our ecosystems connecting. And I don't have success stories for you yet, but just know that we're finding those pathways.
Kitty, you had mentioned a collaboration with the city of Markham that you're starting. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. So in our the first phase of our program, called the Oven Demonstration Zone, we were awarded with the City of Markham for this project. So really, we're at the beginning process of how do we start integrating some process that can be joined with both cities, and then what processes do have to be split, right? We're diving into there are different bylaw regimes that each city has, context sensitivity that each city may have, and also the risk profile, right? I think understanding the risk profile of each city is also going to be important as we look at maybe the solution is deploying different use case of a same company rather than two exact same use case across two municipalities. Are we able to look at different use cases? So the company has also two demonstration opportunities as well too. Also between Markham and ourselves, we're very fortunate that we're part of York Region. So there are some kind of collaborative initiatives that we could do. For example, any project that's transit related, because that's managed by the region. We do share some roads that is going to be very interesting that can hit on both sides. So for example, Yonge Street in Vaughan and Markham, one side is Markham, one side is Vaughan. That becomes a very interesting demonstration site across both cities. And also looking at some of our private sector partners as well too, right? There are partners that span across both cities that could have a major impact across both. I think at the end of the day, city lines are just for cities. Residents don't really see that at all, right? So sometimes it doesn't make sense to do a project only in Vaughan and then it stops in Markham, because that really affects the seamlessness of smart city project. And I'll pass it back to you, Anna.
Thanks, Kitty. Cyrus?
To be honest, I can't probably put my finger on a collaboration that's happened with other municipalities per se. I will, if it's okay, plug, there is a Canadian Smart Cities Community of Practice. Just so happens to be that Kitty and I co-chair that, and our whole purpose for that group is to bring Canadian cities together, towns, doesn't matter the size, We had participation sort of across the country, just to share information about what's happening, because it is a small, I think, a community of practice group. And even in individual cities, Hamilton there's myself and a senior PM. Kitty's an army of 2 doing some great work. Jason, I think your team you mentioned was 3 or 4. Meghan, you commented on those challenges. So I think that's one thing. And if anybody, and again, we kind of limit it to municipalities, but if anybody's interested, feel free to reach out to Kitty or myself, and we're happy to connect that with you. We meet quarterly, and often we even find challenges there with folks wanting to share their ideas and what they're doing, that we do bring in guest speakers and things like that. So I think where I see synergies too is often on leveraging some of the work that cities have done to fast track processes yourself. So a couple examples, we're developing our smart city strategy. First place we go, other cities, understand what they're doing and see how it works for us. Next, procurement. Someone might have done something interesting around innovation pilot procurement, like the stuff that might be happening in Vaughan. How do we learn from that so we can fast track our processes? There may be projects that came out of the Smart Cities Challenge where we're like, hey, that looks like an interesting piece. How do we leverage that? Or is that an area where we can point? Because cities are very like, who's done it first, especially when you're risking public dollars or things like that. And it's nice to be able to leverage and show successes elsewhere. You might not be doing a direct collaboration, but you get to leverage that to evolve the work or maturity that's happening at your city.
Fantastic. Like those are all collaborations, right? So that's fantastic and great that you and Kitty are leading that. So I hope people take you up on that. I'm sure that they will. Meghan, collaborations for Bridgewater?
Yeah, one interesting spinoff from our Smart Cities project is because we're working with Infrastructure Canada through the Smart Cities Challenge, we have been really diving into privacy and security in a way that our town has not done up until this point. And really trying to be state of the art with how we approach that, because we are taking in people's personal information. We're going to be collecting and storing data about people's homes and things like that. So it's so important for that to be secure. And because we're a small community, we actually share our IT services with several other municipalities around us. And so one of the outcomes is that we are going to be hiring a privacy officer, and that's going to be a position that is supporting all of the communities. So we kind of knew that we needed that extra support, and we've been working with consultants to get that as well up to this point. But having someone on staff who can be a go-to if we have questions about anything related to data privacy is going to be awesome. And not only will our municipality have that, but we'll be sharing that with our neighbors. So that's cool.
Fantastic. Yes. I would like to turn now we will talk about the future, but there's a couple of questions about the now that have come in from panelists that I think are quite interesting. And I saw some beginnings of answers, but the first one I saw was from Ahmed. He said, considering initiating smart city related projects, would it be more prudent to commence a comprehensive smart city maturity assessment or formulate a smart city strategy? What are the starting points? I would like to take that one.
I'm happy to start because we're sort of trying to figure that out in Hamilton as well.
Sure.
We found, and again, I think it's how can I put this? I think smart city is a weird term, effectively. Like residents don't relate to it. Like, what does that mean? We have a lot of PhDs in our city, and things like that. So this idea of like even intelligent community, smart open community, we found it very hard to be able to resonate that messaging with residents and also then to council who makes decision. So there's like a loose understanding of what it is, but it's hard to define. So in our case, we weren't ready to go right to a strategy because we want to show some small wins and what it could cover from a scope perspective, and also act as a bit of a magnifier to highlight the work that was already happening in the city. So in our case, we're in the midst now. We've done a few projects. We have a small team. We've done some things here and there. We've partnered with a few entities, and then we're going to say, okay, now that we know we have this ecosystem and sort of a baseline, where do we stand on a maturity model? And that maturity model will then also inform our strategy going forward. So we didn't jump right into the maturity assessment. You could probably do that and see where you are. And same with the strategy. We tried to start with, hey, what does this look like, to get the feel out to the organization and the corporation, to better kind of say, what could this entail? Because, you know, you go to transportation or fleet management and you go, hey, you're doing some interesting stuff around, you know, EVs. Guess what? Like, that's meeting GHG requirements, that's meeting council mandates and priorities, that meets a whole bunch of things. You know, you're kind of doing something that's related to smart cities, and then you start to get that aha moment going on, and, oh, I see how these things are connected. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question very well, that you put out there, Ahmed, but, and I think it's different for every city, but you know, it'd be good to get feedback from the others on as how they've approached it in developing their strategy and where they started as well.
I think that's a great start to answering the question. Thank you. Who else would like to pitch in?
I can jump in a little bit, and my answer won't be as nicely formulated as Cyrus. Really, in Vaughan, our approach was engagement with an external smart city task force, because we didn't want to take the consultant approach where a consultant comes in, writes a strategy, and then we implement. We wanted to do more engagement because we see smart city as a very external facing projects, right? It's you know, how do we leverage technology to make residents' lives better, right? It's how do we save people commute time, or is there a way that people don't have to come into City Hall anymore? Because even though Vaughan, you know, is small, but we're actually, you know, it takes like 45 minutes from one end to one end depending on the traffic, right? So I think for us, we have decided to split internally, where our internal IT department works on the technical back end of things, and then the economic development, which is where the smart city unit faces, really look at how do you work on citizen facing things and how to explain it to the residents that really makes sense to them. Residents may not care as much about governance or about you know, how we are governing our smart city project, but they really care to learn about how we're saving them money or how we're saving them time. So we decided to make this kind of internal split in Vaughan, where I'm focusing on how do we work with external stakeholders, and then our internal department, led by our IT team, to look at, okay, how do we manage all the back end, the systems, the data, the policies, and so we left the maturity assessment with our internal IT department, really looking at just even beyond a smart city, right? Just as a whole digital maturity within the city of Vaughan. They're looking at developing more of the strategy on the digital data side. Smart city, where we have the direction now in Vaughan to look at more project-based implementation rather than strategy development.
Thanks, Kitty. And I see a comment from Chelsea that the Community Solutions Network offers data governance assessments through Open North. So she says it's very similar to a maturity assessment, Ahmed, if you're curious about starting there. Okay, Megan or Jason, did you want to add anything? All good. Okay. The next question is from Charles Forrest about integrating BIM, building information modeling, and digital twins into your smart city framework. Is anyone focusing on that right now? All right. It looks like Jason's ready to go.
I want to spark more conversation about this, because I think it's one of the things that we're struggling with. You know, we have a great GIS team out of our collaboration analytics and innovation collaboration analytics and innovation team in the city, and we have a really great digital twin, except that we're not populating it with smart data yet, because we're still in these silos, right? So roads is putting out sensors, facility management has BIM sensors, but we're developing our own. Each business unit is developing their own hubs to collect that information and create dashboards. We don't have a standard sensor management best practice or collaboration piece. So I think that's something that we're really interested in pursuing, so that we can say, hey, if you are deploying sensors, maybe we don't have roads deploying an air quality sensor on one light post, and our climate team deploying a similar sensor but on a different hub and a different data a different data channel than everybody else. So how do we develop these protocols or processes to develop to share data, right, and populate our digital twin? Because a digital twin is going to have the most use if it is a shared platform across our silos, and even having community participate. So we have groups that are using sensors really well, and that are running some great internal dashboards. Of course, traffic management is a great is ahead of the curve there, and I think facility management, especially as we're seeing all the climate and building control systems go online. But I think it'd be great to start to see. Well, I would be surprised if our Smart City Challenge doesn't include some way of generating shared data models and dashboarding and a collective digital twin improvement.
Great, thank you. Any other digital twin BIM folks here?
Yeah, Anna, I'll just chime in really quickly. Vaughan, we do have digital twin as one of our priority projects for this term of council. Really, we're just at this exploratory stage right now. And I think, our initial use case will be with the planning and development side of things. I think just hearing our planning folks, the amount of data and the amount of clean data that you need, it's a whole project on its own with separated sub projects on its own to really look at, what are we collecting, what are we inputting, and really looking at, can we look at standardizing a process, or before we even think about the technology solutions that we want to start integrating. So I think that's where we're at right now. This is something that we want to pursue, because we are growing really fast in Vaughan in terms of city building perspective. We're going to be building really quickly. So having a visualization and digital twin tool is going to be really helpful, not just from the city perspective, but also to help our residents, right? Really help them visualize what's happening in the growth of the city, really be looking at using as a tool for easier communication, right? When we have a new proposal that comes in, how that could affect the residents that are nearby.
Thanks, Kitty. Cyrus or Meghan?
I'll just chime in, ditto to what Jason and Kitty already said. I think when it comes to, BIM and my light level understanding of that, I think we have challenges with really, again, silo data, and even the technical knowledge gap of how to use the data that we have. We are facing sort of a technology deficit. We don't have a model procurement perspective. Yes, we spend millions on capital projects, but even part of the procurement stage may not identify BIM related standards that need to be provided to the city. Then we don't have the resources to take that data and maintain the models over time. We have 110, I think, facilities in the city of Hamilton. Last I heard, I think we have like 6 different building automation systems, and none of them talk because they're all proprietary. So you run into those types of realistic challenges where, like, yep, we're really good in the GIS space. Everybody knows our GIS. We have some good planning tools in our engineering group, and we have a few others. But bringing it all together, we even did some work around 3D printing of development applications so they could be shown from a model perspective. But getting there in terms of a holistic enterprise approach to the standards around BIM, where that data would live, and then the care and feeding of both the solution that data goes into and using it for more complex modeling, whether it be traffic, or even showing something as simple as you go to council and you want to show them a building application. What does that look like in real time, in sort of 3D? What does it look like in sun modeling? What does it look like at different times of traffic? How does it fit in with the neighborhood? I think we'd love to be able to do that. It's just challenging because, again, we don't either have the technical knowledge or if it's paying, again, I sound like a broken record, it's paying for social housing or poverty reduction or mental health programs, or expending on technology where we are sort of delivering okay, it becomes a challenge, I think. But I think it's going to become more common as people start to adopt twin models and setting sort of the standards where now it becomes built into the whole cycle from procurement to prints to design to everything going forward. But we'll see. I think it has potential and it's going to get there. It's just going to take, we're going to walk and crawl first.
Your point, Cyrus, about the building automation systems, the several different ones in your municipality, lends itself nicely to Cindy Coe's question. She says, how are managing the interests of technology providers in collecting and leveraging data for the development of their products versus the need to safeguard citizen information? How does your approach with small tech provider who might not yet be able to meet security data governance standards? I think there's a few questions wrapped into there. Take it where you will, but do you want to take off from there, Cyrus?
Yeah, great questions there. So I think there's friction in working with technology companies as a city. A lot of the smaller startups, like for example, if we say we need $2 million or $5 million in general liability and $1 million in cybersecurity before you can connect or touch any of our systems, it immediately creates a barrier for some of those players. And but I do think cities from a privacy perspective, especially in Canada, I think are fairly conscientious and aware of how the use of data impacts their residents, and how we as custodians of that information really have to be sort of the front door guard of that data from a safety perspective. So even, we may not have, for example, a detailed data governance document that outlines the various levels of control and data classification. It's things that are coming. But when we do look at procurements and things like that, it's always those questions that get asked, what's happening with the data? Who owns the data? What rights do we have to the data? How do we protect that data? How do we be good custodians of that data? But I think, as you work with the large tech providers too, that you had asked about, it's challenging because we often can't see underneath the covers, right? So if you think about models, whether it be even some of the functionality that everybody's using with Microsoft, we don't often have the ability to see what's driving that data. And I think it's just about due diligence. And again, that's why I think cities move a little bit slowly, because they're so risk averse. They have a large lens, a public lens, both from a council perspective, a resident and business perspective. So we can't sort of move at that pace of the private sector or the larger tech companies, or even small tech companies that are doing amazing stuff that really they come knocking and we're like, hey, we see the use case, but we can't get you even through our procurement pathways, for example, because we don't have ways of doing that. So I know that sounded like a lot of complaining. I didn't mean it to come across that way, but I think it's just the reality of being a city. And it's just evolving and finding that use case and then having a champion that can drive that, whether it's small tech, big tech, privacy-centric design, and procurement, and all those pieces wrapped together. How is that for like a spaghetti verbal diarrhea vomit there of ideas for you?
I think that with the proliferation of sensors, and maybe it's just a numbing to the environment that maybe we haven't seen a huge outcry on. I mean, maybe Quayside did, but what we're trying to do is we're piloting on all our living labs that go in the public that are collecting data. We're piloting some work that was done by a Canadian group, Helpful Places. So Jackie Liu, she's been around for a while. Was at the Smart Cities World Congress, up for a prize there, and for leadership. So they've got a bunch of open source icons and even just some guidelines on how to do this. So we've got a bench that the University of Calgary has made. It's a heated bench and it's got some sensors on it for motion and heat measuring. And so we just put our sign out on that that's ready to go with that project that just says, hey, these three kinds of sensors on that, and then here's a QR code for you to find out how that data is being used. So it's not tracking your movement, your identity. It's being stored for 24 hours and then it's being being erased. And so this whole digital trust for places and routines, DTPR, is kind of gaining momentum. But if you're new in the maturity on it, I would recommend starting there and just using their open source material. And we're buying a vinyl printer just so we can add these stickers next to different sensors that we're deploying as a part of our Living Labs program.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we can now start to look at the future. We, you know, you've been so far on your smart cities journeys now. What is the next area of focus for you, and where do you see things going with smart city in your city? And I'll start with Meghan.
So as I kind of alluded to in our presentation, we haven't actually launched our energy management information system yet for the public. So that's going to be a huge milestone for us with our Smart Cities program. And another thing that's interesting, it's a little bit less of like the smart side of our project, I guess, but with our building retrofit program, we have had fairly good success bringing in homeowners, but it's a little bit more challenging for us to connect with landlords because we do have some rebates and things like that for landlords to do upgrades in multi-unit buildings. And we also know that tenants are facing higher rates of energy poverty than homeowners. So we really want to be able to support that group. So we're continuing to do things like interviews with landlords and trying to understand what the motivators are, if there's other incentives that we can provide and things like that to encourage them to do those upgrades that will benefit the tenants and make that housing more affordable for people. So that's part of our program that we're kind of looking forward to is continuing to expand our services for tenants and also launching our energy management information system for the public.
Thanks, Meghan. Cyrus?
Yeah, I think for us, we see some common themes going forward around infrastructure and sustainability. So, you know, the focus on net zero, GHG, whether we think about, you know, smart buildings or building automation systems, where often maybe through, you know, and I hate to use the word AI, it's so overplayed, but, you know, taking building controls and just enhancing how they're operating without maybe doing complete building retrofits seems to be an area that has lots of opportunity. I think mobility and advancing the ways the city provides multimodal mobility is going to be really important, whether it be, in our case, reworking our bus sort of layout to align with our LRT implementation, micromobility, advancing bike lanes. And I think also, you know, green spaces, how we use green spaces, expanding sort of urban forestry, not things you maybe have a tech component necessarily. You know, with that said, you know, we have a project with Mohawk College where we're looking at being able to monitor the health of some of our urban forestry through IoT devices. And I think citizen engagement and making sure that as a city, we're engaging with citizens from a communication perspective and hearing their voice across the work that the city does. Hamilton's just released its first sort of public engagement strategy and protocols to help standardize how public engagement happens across the city. So yeah, a mix of those things, and some of them will have tech components, and some of them may be more citizen facing without a tech component.
Thanks, Cyrus. Jason?
The future for us. So for us in Q4, we'll be opening the doors to the Technology Integration Center. So really giving business units the opportunity to immerse themselves in new technology and for them to better understand how that could be applied in the future. I think that's a big one. I think as we work towards the challenge, I think it'd be how do we leverage that digital twin? How do we build those best practices for data sharing and data collection? And then how can that data, the results of data sharing, improve our climate resilience, whether that's mitigation or adaptation? And I think the last one is just an ongoing issue across the country: is how do we work within the rules of procurement and being able to work with companies in developing solutions for civic issues. You know, it's hard for us to work with a company and then turn around and be the first customer. And so we need to maybe perhaps with help of the federal government or with the help of third party conveners to really explore innovative solutions that leverage the assets, the experience, and the operational capacity of our cities with the innovation and new ideas and R&D investment of our companies. We're good at it with universities. I think we all talked about our great relationships with post-secondaries, but industry from economic development and just sheer horsepower would be great.
Fantastic, great point. Kitty?
I think in Vaughan, I did share during my presentation the 8 priority projects that we're looking to explore for this next couple of years. But maybe I'll just quickly highlight some of the themes and angle. I'm seeing some projects come online on the DEI angle, of course on the citizen engagement angle as well too, and also on the smart building side as well too, as Cyrus and Jason both mentioned. And one of the projects that we're very early stage, but looking at developing, how do we integrate, smart city metrics in the beginning of the development planning cycle, right? Like we currently in Vaughan, we do have one for sustainability related one, but let's look at how, can we expand that a little bit to include some smart technology integration so that we have, it's a little bit more future-proof for Vaughan and as we develop some of these metrics on our end so that we were looking to, I think where my focus is for the next little while is how do we put in frameworks, processes, and things that can be repeatable so that, if I'm not here in Vaughan tomorrow, this smart city program can continue because we have everything that we're setting up in place and we're taking this time during this term of council to really bring in these assets, or what we call assets, and process and frameworks and approaches so that, if internal department comes to me and say, I want to do this, we can just point to the MyTax program or to this program, the Oven program, or if a company external comes to me and say, I want to test with the city, we can point to things. So it becomes a very more of a seamless process where I'm hoping over the next little bit by setting up these kind of long-term citywide process that could touch on innovation in Vaughan.
Thank you. And thank you all so much.